So let's start with the blessing for the study of Torah. If you have not already said it today, this way you now will. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who makes us holy with commandments and commands us to engage in the words of Torah. So the royal family of ancient Israel, who were they? Let's actually just start with that.
The descendants of Ruth.
So we do eventually get to descendants of Ruth, yes.
Descendants of King David.
Descendants of King David. Before we get to King David, though, there was another king. Who was that?
Saul.
Saul. Okay. Does anyone know much about Saul? I see like sort of iffy.
He's a sick man.
And okay, sick man.
Was there some?
He lost the favor of God and died in battle with the Philistines.
Okay.
And his heirs died with him.
I might be mixing him up with someone else, but I feel like there was some battle against the Amalekites and he decided to save the king, which God didn't want him to do.
Yeah,
and
that was really bad news.
And I think that there's some midrash that said that like during that time between when the king eventually died and when Saul decided to save him was when he like had some child who ultimately led to Haman or something like that.
I have not heard that midrash, but that may definitely exist. So there are plenty of stories about Saul. We could spend the entire evening just telling stories about Saul. But I want to look at him as the first king of Israel. And so in doing that, let's talk about what you would look for in a king or a ruler of any sort, a leader of some sort. What are the qualities that you would look for in a leader? Right, because remember, he's the first king. So this is the first one of his kind. What are you looking for? This is an invitation to participate.
Strength.
Strength. So are you talking physical strength, Carol?
Well, that and leadership in battle.
Okay, so you're talking about the military context. Awesome. What else?
Intelligence.
Intelligence. Okay, anything else?
How about wisdom and compassion?
Okay, hold on. Kendra Newman said wisdom and
compassion.
Compassion, and then Paul, was that you who just
yes, moral? I said moral centering.
Moral centering.
Not just moral centering, but someone who has the courage to stand up for what's right, even if it's an uncomfortable thing to do.
The idea of it being wisdom, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs talks a lot about the three prongs of leadership, and there's the prophetic leadership, the priestly, and the kingly. And the province of the kings is wisdom. It's the sort of, that's not necessarily Torah wisdom, but like sort of universal wisdom, like the stuff you hand down, like that you go to your grandfather, or in my case, father, because he's here, to get that like sage advice. That's what the king is.
I apologize, everyone. I am looking at the list, and it appears that we may have lost Rabbi Gorban. Let me take a look and see. Yeah, I'm not sure what has gone on. Apologies. Just give me a moment. Let me see if I can find her contact information and see whether we knew what's going on.
Cat bit through her cord.
I can text her if you need.
That would be great if you have her number, which I was
She's
just going
back.
to go look up.
She's
And
back.
me.
Oh,
She
great.
just reconnected.
Rabbi Gorban, you there?
Unmute.
Karen, you're muted.
Are you muted?
Rabbi Gorban, you're muted.
I had hit the unmute button, but don't you love technology? Just as I was listening to all of your responses, my computer decided that this right now is the exact time it needed to restart and run updates. So I am currently on my phone. I apologize. The other thing that I'm gonna need to figure out how to do, sorry, while I try to readjust my computer, my phone. There we go, I'm not upside down anymore, correct? So this means a couple of things. One is that I cannot see your faces. And two, I am going to have to try to figure out how to get the screen share, the text that I was going to.
We can't see your, oh, there you are.
Is it something you can email to me?
I was going to say, you could send it to me, Rabbi Gorban, if you wanted to. And if you need to share text, and I can share from here. It's up to you.
Okay, so give me one moment. I'll send you the link. I just need to get to it. Okay, so while I get that over to Adam, we were talking about qualities that make for a good leader. So there was strength and intelligence and compassion and moral uprightness and the courage to stand for what's right even when it's not.
I will throw one other one in, Rabbi Gorban: calm in crisis, which you seem to possess.
Thank you. Yes, calm in crisis is also very important.
I'd like to add another one, a sense of God's presence in your life.
Okay, a sense of God's presence in your life. So, look, we could keep going on and on and on, right? We want our leaders to have all of these things and more. And so, given that context, we are hopefully going to, if I can find it. Sorry, I just want to figure out how to now.
On the left side. Did you turn up your phone, the voice on the left side?
Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Bear with us. This is one of the vicissitudes of technology.
So what I'm going to do is put into the chat the Safaria sheet that I put together. So any of you, if you prefer, can look at it directly on your computer, or Adam, if you can actually share that with everybody, that would be fantastic. I have never played with Safaria on my phone, so.
All right, is everyone seeing? And give me a thumbs up if you're seeing this, okay?
Yep, we are seeing it.
Great. Good job.
Okay. And can you all see me? Yes, okay, awesome. So Adam, if you will do one other thing for me, which is to go towards the top right corner where it has the A and the Aleph, and switch it to the bilingual layout that is parallel, the one next to it. Yep. Thank you. Okay. And can everyone read that, or does Adam need to make that bigger? Remember, I can't see any of you.
I can read it. I can read it.
Okay, so can I have a reader to read about how we get our first king to begin with?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
All the elders of Israel assembled and came to Samuel at Ramah, and they said to him, "You have grown old, and your sons have not followed your ways. Therefore, appoint a king for us to govern us like all other nations."
Okay, and so who's Samuel?
Prophet.
Samuel is a prophet. Remember, he is the son of Hannah. We read about his birth, the prayer for his birth, and then his birth on Rosh Hashanah. And he's dedicated to God from actually before he is even conceived, and becomes becomes one of the primary leaders of the Israelite community and the tribal nations, or the tribal communities within the land of Israel. Okay, and so the elders are now coming to him and saying, "You're old, your sons are terrible, give us a king. We want to be like everyone else." Keep going, Carol.
Samuel was displeased that they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to the Eternal, and the Eternal replied to Samuel, "Heed the demand of the people in everything they say to you, for it is not you that they have rejected. It is me they have rejected as their king. Like everything else they have done ever since I brought," and that's all I can see.
Oh.
Since I brought them out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and worshiping other gods, so they are doing to you. Heed their demand, but warn them solemnly, and tell them about the practices of any king who will rule over them.
Okay, so Samuel is not happy with this this request. He goes to God, and what does God say?
God says, "Do it."
God says, "Do it," and
It's not you, it's me.
what was that?
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. They're not rejecting you, Samuel. They're rejecting me, God. So, but how does God feel about them wanting a king?
Warn them as well of the consequences, good and bad, mostly bad.
Warn them about the consequences of having a king. It's very gentle in the text, but I think that God's feelings are actually much stronger than that. Especially when God says, like everything else they have done ever since I brought them out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and worshiping other gods, so they are doing to you. God is actually really angry with them and annoyed and sort of throwing up the divine hands and like, I give up. They want this. They will not listen to me. They will not listen to you. Do your best to warn them off, but otherwise, like, I give up. Give them what they want. This is not a happy God, but a sort of resigned God. Okay, so Joe, will you keep reading starting at verse 10? And Adam, can you scroll a little bit further down so that Joe can see all of it? Thank you.
Okay. Samuel reported all the words of the Eternal to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This will be the practice of the king who will rule over you. He will take your sons and appoint them as his charioteers and horsemen, and they will serve as outrunners for his chariots. He will appoint them as his chiefs of thousands and of 50s, or they will have to plow his fields, reap his harvest, and make his weapons and the equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters as perfumers, cooks, and bakers. He will seize your choice fields, vineyards, and olive groves, and give them to his courtiers. He will take 1/10 part of your grain and vintage and give it to his eunuchs and courtiers. He will take your male and female slaves, your choice young men, and your asses, and put them to work for him. He will make 1/10 part of your flocks. He will take 1/10 part of your flocks, and you shall become his slaves. The day will come when you cry out because the king whom you yourselves have chosen and the Eternal will not answer you on that day." But
Okay, Samuel is being really forceful here, right?
yeah,
Having a king will be
ticked
bad
off.
for you. What was that?
As you said, he's ticked off.
Yeah.
This-
Okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
Rabbi Gorban, this is really rubbing me the wrong way. I'm surprised I missed this when I studied this many years ago, but doesn't it in the Torah say when the Jewish people want a king, we can have a king, and that the king should like read from the Torah every day to be reminded of how to behave? So shouldn't we therefore, instead of hearing this, the king's just going to be horrible and corrupt and take advantage of everyone, shouldn't it be, first of all, like God expects we're going to want a king. So why is God so offended? And second of all, Sam should say, you can have a king, but these are the standards I expect. I expect the king to follow the rules of the Torah and to regularly remind himself what those rules are.
So you raise a really important point, and this is where I generally tend toward looking at the timing of biblical authorship. So I will often spiritually talk about the Torah being a whole document given to Moses or divinely inspired, and then I will also talk about the text as having been written by people or collections of stories compiled over time. Deuteronomy which is where those instructions about kings come in, would have been written, would have come from the time period when kings were already well established and in place. And so is reflective of sort of even a later time period than these stories come from. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to put this together because it seems to conform.
I hear that.
Yeah, but no, thanks for trying to make sense of it.
So Samuel tries to convince them not to have a king. It'll be really bad for them. Hopefully the king will behave like we read about in Deuteronomy, but Samuel also knows the reality, which is that that's funny. They're not actually going to act like that, and they are in fact going to act more like this. Okay, Irene, will you just finish off this section?
Sure. But the people would not listen to Samuel's warning. No, they said, we must have a king over us, that we may be like all the other nations. Let our king rule over us and go out at our head and fight our battles. When Samuel heard all that the people said, he reported it to the Eternal. And the Eternal said to Samuel, heed their demands and appoint a king for them. Samuel then said to the men of Israel, go, all of you go home.
I imagine him being so frustrated and like, just go home. I can't deal with you all anymore. Go home. Okay, let's keep going down. So if you were God, what would you want from this king that you now have to appoint because the Israelites are insisting on it?
I guess God wanted somebody who was tall and good looking and a schmo.
Okay.
It's the simplest answer.
Yes, you're getting a little bit ahead of the game, but think about, so remember what is God feeling? How is God feeling about the Israelites' desire to have a king?
He's not happy about it. He's mad about it, or God is mad about it.
Right, God is mad about it.
Right.
And so if you're mad about having to do something,
you're going to give them what they are asking for, so to speak, and you're going to give them a lousy king.
Okay, so you're going to make it lousy so that they realize how bad of a decision it is.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have asked for that. This is what you get.
So God is being passive aggressive.
Okay, so right, so that's one option, is to be passive aggressive, to choose someone who will do a lousy job. Another option, because there are options here, right? I mean, the text has only one option, but God in theory would have other options.
One option is to be apathetic, to say, I'm going to step back now because the people have lost interest in me, and I'm going to just let them do whatever they're going to do, and maybe it'll work out and maybe they won't, but whatever it is, it'll be their problem.
Okay, so you as God wouldn't even choose a king for them. You would make them pick their king.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other options?
Another option would be to choose a king who was all in for God's project to begin with.
So find someone who will actually support God and what God wants to be that king, and to not just do a good job for the people, but also do a good job for God.
Right, sort of a transparent king who, like, is, as we say, you know, people can be God's hands, and, you know, sort of is doing God's work, but transparently, so that it's clear that it's as in the name of and for God.
Right, so these are all options, and I'm sure that if we spent more time, we could come up with more. As was sort of hinted at earlier, that's the first one is really where God is going to go with it, the sort of passive aggressive thing. So let's read about who God chooses as the first king of Israel. This is our first introduction to Saul. So would someone read, please?
I'll read.
Thank you, Susan.
There was a man of Benjamin. Oh, that's not it. I'm sorry. Once the asses of Saul's father Kish.
No, that's where I wanted you to read.
At the top?
Yes.
Oh,
first one.
I read ahead. I'm sorry. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zeror, the son of Bechorath, son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite, a man of substance. He
Yasher
had a
koach on those names.
Hmm?
Yasher koach on those names. Good job.
Thank you. He had a son whose name was Saul, an excellent young man. No one among the Israelites was handsomer than he. He was a head taller than any of the people.
Okay, this is our primary description, our first description of Saul. He is handsome and he is tall and he comes from a good line. Okay, keep going.
Once
and Adam, you might need to scroll down a little bit more for Susan.
Once the asses of Saul's father Kish went astray, and Kish said to his son Saul, take along one of the servants and go out and look for the asses. He passed into the hill country of Ephraim. He crossed the district of Shalisha, but they did not find him. They passed through the district of Shalim, but they were not there. They traversed the entire territory of Benjamin, and still they did not find them. When they reached the district of Zuph, Saul said to the servant who was with him, let us turn back, or my father will stop worrying about the asses and begin to worry about us.
So how long do you think they've been gone? It doesn't, I don't need like.
At least a few days, maybe a week.
Right, they've been gone for a long time. They have traversed the entire territory of Benjamin. And Benjamin, the territory of Benjamin was not large, I'll grant you that, but they have searched an entire tribal region. And first of all, they still can't find these donkeys. And second of all, they've been gone for a really long time. To the point where Saul is like, forget about these donkeys. Like, we just need to go home. Otherwise, my dad's going to start worrying. So we've got someone who's like not super smart if it really takes that much effort to go find these donkeys, which they walk, but I don't know that they're wandering that far. Would someone else read, or Susan, you can continue if you're comfortable.
Sure. But he replied, there is a man of God in that town, and the man is highly esteemed. Everything that he says comes true. Let us go there. Perhaps he will tell us about the errand on which we are set out. But if we go, Saul said to his servant, what can we bring the man? For the food in our bags is all gone, and there is nothing we can bring to the man of God as a present. What have we got? The servant answered Saul again, I happen to have a quarter shekel of silver. I can give that to the man of God, and he will tell us about our errand. Saul said to his servant, a good idea, let us go. And they went to the town where the man of God lived.
Okay, Saul is dependent on his servant to save his butt. And they go check out this town where the man of God is. Who is the man of God?
Samuel?
Gonna be Samuel, yes. So let's keep going.
Sorry, that was me. How do I get rid of this?
In the top right, there should be a little X box.
Is that it? Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to scroll and I did that by accident.
I know.
May I read, Rabbi?
Yes. Michael, is that you?
Yes, this is Michael.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, Joanna said that this was not only the first king, but the first hostess gift. Yeah, the quarter shekel of silver. Okay.
Note of the first hostess gift on record.
Okay. As they were climbing the ascent to the town, they met some girls coming out to draw water, and they asked them, "Is the seer in town?" "Yes," they replied, "he is up there ahead of you. Hurry, for he has just come to the town because the people have a sacrifice at the shrine today."
Okay. What are you getting about Saul? He's handsome. He's
tall.
Tall.
He just failed the test.
Yeah, not
Say
overly
because-
intelligent.
Wait, hold on, Jonathan, say more.
So when people are coming out to draw water in Torah, the real heroes help them draw the water and like fend off marauders and stuff like that. And he's just like, "Oh, hey, which way's the prophet?" And then he leaves. I feel like there was room here for like, an Eliezer and Rivka moment or a Yaakov and Rachel moment, and he blew it.
Yeah, he's getting directions from random people. He doesn't know what's happening. He can't figure out his way around town. I mean, towns were not super complicated. You go into town, it's pretty clear where the shrine is. And he is not really showing any sort of leadership. Right? So here's who we've got. We get a little snippet about hearing that God tells Samuel that Saul is going to appear, and that's going to be the person to anoint as king. And so let's pick up here. Can I have a reader? Jonathan, can I have you read?
Yes, of course. Sorry.
Thank you.
We were having a side conversation. Shaul approached Shmuel inside the gate and said to him, "Tell me, please, where is the house of the seer?" And Shmuel answered,
Wait, sorry, hold on a sec. Who does he go to?
Shmuel. And he says, "I'm the seer. Go up ahead of me to the shrine, for you shall eat with me today, and in the morning I will let you go after telling you whatever may be on your mind. As for your asses that strayed 3 days ago, do not concern yourself about them, for they have been found. And for whom is all Israel yearning, if not for you and all your ancestral house?" Shaul replied, "But I am only a Benjaminite, from the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my clan is the least of all the clans of the tribe of Benjamin. Why do you say such things to me?" We're wondering the same thing. Samuel took Saul his servant and brought them into the hall and gave them a place at the head of the guests, who numbered about 30.
Right? Saul is like, "Who, me? You want something to do with me?" Okay.
Why is that so
Lucky.
surprising?
What was that?
Why is that so surprising? What is he supposed to say? Expect to be chosen? I mean, I just think we're being too hard on this poor guy. His mission is to do something that his dad asked him to do. That's his focus. He's in territory that he's not familiar with. He's making an effort to find these animals. He's having a hard time. And he's worried about his dad, who, because he thinks he's sure now at this point that his dad is worrying about him. So he wants to return as quickly as possible home. And, he gets, pointed another direction. And I just think, it's, the story is made to be like God wants the story to be. And, it's, picking this, less than perfect guy to be the first king. And I'll show those Israelites, this is what they asked for, this is what they're getting.
For sure. I think, Malki, where I'm going with it is not so much to pick is not so much to pick on Saul as being a terrible person, but he is not the way the story is told, it is very clear that he is not in any way, shape, or form going to be a good leader. Right. So in terms of what I would need from a leader, the guy who can't find his way actually around his own territory, right? This is not foreign territory. This is his own territory. And who doesn't even know the first place to look for his animals, who can't figure out who the people are that he should be talking to. Those are not things that you would want in a leader. They're totally fine, endearing qualities in an average person. Not necessarily what you're looking for in a leader. Does that make?
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Irene.
I think there's a bigger contrast maybe going on here, which is between Saul and Moses, because we have a sheep wandering off with Moses. No one needs to tell him to find the sheep. He on his own goes and finds the sheep, and brings it back.
Graze.
And then when God tells Moses that he's going to be a leader, Moses's response is, "Oh, I'm not. Oh, I don't have a big name." His response is recognizing his own weaknesses and limitations, where Saul doesn't seem concerned about himself. He's just more concerned that, like, oh, not very many people know Benjaminites.
That's a really beautiful connection and distinction between the two of them. I heard, Michael, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I just jumped ahead and read the next paragraph. So my question is.
Well, so why don't you read the next paragraphs and then.
Okay, and then we'll talk about it.
Yes.
Early at the break of day, Samuel called to Saul on the roof. He said, "Get up, and I will send you off." Saul arose, and the two of them, Samuel and he, went outside. As they were walking towards the end of town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to walk ahead of us," and he walked ahead. "But you stop here a moment, and I will make known to you the word of God." Okay, let's stop there. And was Saul praying on the roof, or was he still sleeping?
There were a few verses that I cut out for the sake of time, and they eat. Saul gets a choice portion that was set aside, and then Samuel has Saul sleep on the roof, but he's on the roof already.
Okay, so he's awake.
Well, I don't know that he was awake, but
Yeah.
sometime after dinner, he gets up on the roof. The roof, by the way, is not necessarily we're not talking sloped roofs like we have here. The roof would have been flat, probably like an apartment building, balcony roof sort of thing where you can hang out. The roof also probably would have had some shade and would have been one of the cooler parts of the house because you get a nice cross breeze actually from all directions. There are other stories in the Bible that talk about like people being on the roof. Was that your question?
Yeah, that was just my question.
Okay. Yeah.
You would think that a leader is going to be up and ready to go and, doesn't need anybody to wake him up. Okay, do you want me to stop there?
I want to follow Michael on your comment that the comment in the Talmud about Shaul's successor, just one more thing to get Shaul angry at David, is that David wakes up at midnight in order to learn Torah. Like he's like, it's part of the whole argument about when do you say the evening Shema, because you're like, when is midnight, and are there 3 or 4 watches, and like, well, David got up at midnight, and you have to figure out, like, is it in the middle of the second or whatever, but he's getting up in the middle of the night, like, so zealously wanting to learn the wisdom that we were talking about, not sleeping past noon.
He's not waking up
past
in the
midnight.
middle of the night. He's waking up at the beginning of the morning.
Oh, I love this kid.
Ooh.
Me too.
Well, and that's part of the discussion, right? Is it the end of the night or the beginning of the morning?
Right.
Right.
Sign him up for rabbinical school now.
No, we need, I mean, sure, but we also need well-educated and interested lay people. So
There you go.
whatever, or educators. So whatever you choose.
That'd be perfect.
Or med school.
There you go.
Okay, let's keep going. So Samuel is going to anoint Saul. Who's going to read?
I'll be happy to continue.
Thank you, Joe.
Samuel took a flask of oil and poured some on Saul's head and kissed him and said, "The Eternal herewith anoints you ruler over the people. When you leave me today, you will meet 2 men near the tomb of Rachel in the territory of Benjamin at Zelzah, and they will tell you that the asses you set out to look for have been found, and that your father has stopped being concerned about the asses and is worrying about you, saying, 'What shall I do about my son?'"
Wait, so what is the father worrying about?
Now he's worried about Saul and the servant.
No. Because then the text would have said, "Where is my son?" What is
He wants
Kish-
to know what he should do about his son.
Right.
Whatever
What
that
is that? Well, what does that mean?
Well, usually
I
it
mean,
means
Pam, you're an educator. So when
am
a
I gonna do
parent
about my
comes to
son?
you and
What am I
says,
gonna
"What
do
do I
about
do about my son?" What do they mean?
what does his future hold? What am I going to do about him? What's he going to do with himself? That's what I would think it would be about.
The asses have been found, so he thinks his son is out doing something else. So what am I supposed to do about him?
That, and he wasn't very good at finding them, right? Somebody else found
Well,
them. He
yeah.
couldn't even find the donkeys that I sent him to go look for.
I know.
How's he going to make a life for himself like that?
Right, so we've got someone who, like, even dad is concerned about what's gonna happen with his son. So we're gonna skip the next bit. Samuel is going to tell Saul all of what's gonna happen over the next couple days and what he should do, and then it in fact does happen. So as Saul turned around to leave Samuel, God gave him another heart. God gave Saul another heart, and all those signs were fulfilled that same day. Okay, so now Saul has been anointed, and we need to announce to everybody who the new king is. I'm going to read this just for the sake of time. So Samuel summoned the people to the Eternal at Mitzpah and said to them, "Thus said the Eternal, the God of Israel, I brought Israel out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the hands of the Egyptians and of all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But today you have rejected your God who delivered you from all your troubles and calamities. For you said, 'No, set up a king over us.' Now station yourself before the Eternal by your tribes and clans." Samuel brought forward each of the tribes of Israel, and the lot indicated the tribe of Benjamin. Then Samuel brought forward the tribe of Benjamin by its clans, and the clan of the Matrites was indicated. And then Saul, son of Kish, was indicated. But when they looked for him, he was not to be found. They inquired of the Eternal again, "Has anyone else come here?" And the Eternal replied, "Yes, he is hiding among the baggage." So they ran over and brought him from there. And when he took his place among the people, he stood a head taller than all the people. And Samuel said to the people, "Do you see the one whom the Eternal has chosen? There is none like him among all the people." And all the people acclaimed him, shouting, "Long live the king!" So Saul has been anointed king. He's been told what is going to happen and wait for some instructions. And he comes to this proclamation before the people. And what does he do? What does Saul do?
Hides.
He hides. So if you were one of the Israelites, what would you think about this new king?
I would feel sorry for him because he doesn't know what in the world awaits him. It's not like he's been prepared to be a king.
So he certainly hasn't been prepared to be a king, but neither was David. Right? David is picked almost randomly to go fight this battle, and he steps up, like literally steps up. And where does Saul go when he is picked? He goes into hiding. And remember, he's this, I mean, this is if you look, if anyone ever tries to tell you that the Torah isn't funny or that the Bible isn't funny, this story should show you that it very much is. That the authors had a sense of humor, and that they were intentionally, and Malki, I'll grant you, the authors were intentionally trying to make Saul out to be a fool.
So to answer your question,
but here's this tall guy, handsome guy, good looking guy, hiding among baggage, right? And then he sort of pops out and then looks awesome. So Michael, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say, you asked what the Israelites would think of somebody like that, and the only thing I could think of is oi.
Is what?
Is oi, this is our king hiding with the baggage.
We can say that he looks the part. He might look the part. He might be a good leader on TV, but we are not brought into his inner life at all, except by his actions. And with his actions, following up with what Malki was saying, yes, he wasn't trained to be a king, but he also may simply not have the skills. And what I'm thinking is that he might be really aware of that. And, you know, who knows how he feels about that, but maybe hiding he feels is the right thing to do. This felt like even earlier on that this is an early example of the Peter principle of somebody being promoted beyond their skill level. And I think there's a case to be made that maybe he was aware of that. And also what you were saying exactly, that he is being painted as a character here who simply does not have the skills to be a leader of the caliber necessary.
Absolutely. And I think that if we are looking at it from the perspective of Saul and what he is experiencing, he is also behaving in this moment very naturally in terms of leadership and the beginnings of a monarchy. God is really clearly saying with this choice that the monarchy is, that God is giving into the monarchy. It is doomed to fail, and it will lead to heartache and destruction.
Do we have an idea how old he is?
We do not have an idea of how old he is. I mean, he's still, you know, living in his father's house, so young, on the younger side. except that he only rules for 10 years, and he's certainly painted as very old, or nearing very old by the time his leadership is over.
Well, it seems like his introduction is prefaced with how upset God was and how you've all left me. And so it seems as though it's perfectly understandable then for it to be, okay, well, here's your guy. It wouldn't be, again, the humor and the passive aggressiveness wouldn't be as strong if he hadn't been hiding in the baggage, right? It's all part of that story to tell. And again, so it seems as though if you didn't have that preface beforehand, then it might be more confusing as to why he's hiding in the baggage or whatever. But you have that preface to make theoretically everyone aware, okay, look out, because you asked for it, and good luck.
Yeah. Yes.
What's interesting is something that I looked up while we were talking. They mentioned that he's the son of Kish, and I was like, I know that name, and it's in the Megillah because Mordechai is also Ish Yemini, who's Ben so and so Ben Kish. He's also a descendant of somebody named Kish. And there's a tradition in some of the commentary that he is actually descended from the same Kish, that he's a descendant of Shaul. And that some of the things that Mordechai does in the Megillah are to atone for things that Shaul did wrong. But also interestingly, since we have to assume that Esther is from the same line, right, from Mordechai's brother, so forth, that her hesitancy to get involved in the Megillah may be like a remnant of that, like hiding in the baggage kind of.
Nice. So we do have to wrap up. We're over time. But I wanted to share this text. I think it's a really interesting reflection on choosing leaders and also how we make choices about things that we're not happy about. Right? God here is making a choice, a passive aggressive choice, as we've discussed, that ultimately leads to a lot of trouble for the Israelite community. And if God had done what I think it was Julie had said and picked someone who was willing to support God and also lead the Israelites, then we might have been in a different place. And the whole course after that might have been different. We certainly see some of that in the selection of David later on. So thank you all for joining me and letting me share this, and an early Chag Sameach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi
Thank
Gorban.
you, Rabbi Gorban.
Please feel free to stay on if you're interested. The next session will be with Rabbi Leil.